last session of the day, so stick with us because you're going to hear from these fabulous women today, and we're kind of taking you through their journey, where they started, how they got here, and you're going to hear from some really, really inspiring women. I have worked with, called on all of these beautiful women, and now I call them my friends, not only my colleagues, but my friends in this industry. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to introduce the panel. Carolyn Breton. Carolyn is managing director with Involved Media. It's an egoless agency where service you can trust meets high impact clout. Nikki Stone is EVP Managing Director of Zenith. It's part of Publicis, an ROI agency. Goes beyond ROI to deliver return on imagination and more integrated experiences that inspire growth. Bettina Heimrath is President, Hearts and Science, a media agency, part of Omnicom, that is recoding media for emotional connection at scale. And Leslie Conway is the CEO of Mindshare, a global media agency under Group M that has a collective desire to drive good growth for their customers. And I'm Debbie Benediva with Talon. You've heard about me today, and I'm absolutely so thrilled to be here. So let's dive in. We're going to start with Carolyn.
Okay.
And I themed your interview commitment. I love your connection to great health, running, your love of nature. It made so much sense to me when I read about your story that you loved whitewater kayaking, and that's what led you into the foray of media. We want to hear about this. Tell the group about this journey and what you learned early on about connections.
A desperate dad will get you to do things. So I was a whitewater kayaker through CEGEP and university. I was lucky enough to work on rivers in Quebec and Ontario as a whitewater kayak instructor, as a safety kayaker. And when I graduated from McGill with a bachelor's degree in stylistics and translation and a graduate degree in PR, I thought, I don't really want to work in an office. So I took off traveling and worked in South Africa and in Zimbabwe, and then made my way to Mexico, and eventually came home broke with a bag filled with dirty laundry and in need of a home-cooked meal. And thinking I was going to settle into my parents' basement, the room had been converted into a wine cellar. And my dad said, enough, get a job. And so my plan B was to be a copywriter. And I interviewed with a few agencies in Montreal. And I got a job as an assistant planner on the L'Oreal account at Marketel, an agency that no longer exists. I discovered what Excel and a GRP were, and the rest is history. I stayed because of the opportunities and the people in this business.
So let's talk about the relationships and sort of the commitment that you have for your people. What has been your proudest achievement?
The relationships I've built in this industry. This industry is built on people like you. And, I've had the opportunity to build teams, to bring people along that I want to work with, some more than once, and I've been very lucky and fortunate to do that. I've had some fantastic clients, relationships built on honesty and collaboration, and I've made some lifelong friends in this industry, and that's really what I'm proud of.
And a common challenge you spoke about in your interview was about hiring top talent and really bridging the skill gap. So what can you tell our leaders in the room of the future to make sure they are ready?
It's simple things. Be curious. Never lose that curiosity. It's so important in our industry when, it changes so fast. Be kind. Be proud of the work that you do. Sometimes it can be very simple or mundane, but take pride in what you do. And as you start hiring people, hire people that complement you. I think that's been one of the things I've cherished the most is some stuff I'm not good at, so I'm going to bring in people that are, and together we're just stronger.
Right. And we're obviously at the DPAA Video Everywhere Summit, so we have to loop in digital out of home. You're an agency leader. You're at the omni-channel table. You're working with big accounts. Yeah. How does digital out of home fit into the mix?
I think it's important nowadays. I think, that out of home as a channel has evolved so much, especially since I've started in the business. I won't date myself, and I think the capabilities of digital out of home are amazing from, targeting perspective. We've talked about it. It can be an awareness channel, but it can also be something that's very localized. I think the flexibility that it brings and the creative aspect. I love how innovative and creative out of home allows you to be.
So we want to see more out of home from your agency.
Yeah. As a media planner, I love out of home.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Nikki.
Hi, Deb.
Nikki Stone is one of those women that you instantly feel safe around. Do you agree? Those who know her. And she breeds that through her leadership style within the agency, and I think why she's seen so much success in her role at Zenith. You started your career with a quote-unquote plan on being a lawyer and soon shifted to media. Tell us about this journey from law to media and what your proudest achievement has been to date.
Okay, so I'm going to start by caveating that I never really knew what I wanted to do when I grew up, but my dad had me convinced that a lawyer was the way to go if I wasn't going to stay in the family business any longer. And I definitely wanted, after my whole life from the time I was 3 of being dragged around to like all the buying and everything else that goes into retail, I was like, I'm not staying in the family business. And so lawyer it was. That was the thing that we could at least agree to. And after I finished college here, I went to university in Australia, and my goal was to go to law school in England. And I was going to specialize in free trade agreement law. Of the most boring type of law, I'm sure. But I have a real passion for the environment. If you know me, I love outdoors. I love all of that stuff. So it sort of felt very close to my heart. And I had one of my law professors tell me, what are you going to do after a few years when your ethics is constantly in question? And because the type of law that you want to get into is you're going to have to make sacrifices for things, and you're constantly going to be put in this balance. And I went, oh, fuck. And I thought about that long and hard, and I took a beat to hang out a little bit at the beach, and my professor got me into a PR firm, and I was working on brands like beautiful brands like Jean Paul Gaultier and all of these beautiful brands, and they eventually brought me into the office, and I went, oh, this is kind of cool. But I still didn't think that was my journey. And I ended up coming back to Canada to try and figure out what that journey was. And I worked in educational travel, and I found myself flying into bombing areas because I had a role that was like crisis. And so if you know educational travel at all, without going into a long story about it, but many years ago when I started out there, I also will not age myself, before kids in high school had their own cell phones, so that is dating myself. Right, there was always somebody who was organizing those that was on call, and I was the on call a lot because apparently I'm quite calming in stressful situations. So that ended up being a role. And when I was flying in, like if there was a hurricane or things like that, which was still not great, but at least it felt natural. And then the London bombing happened, and I was on the next flight into London, and I went, oh, this is not safe in the long term. And I was rallying 200 students and bringing them into France so that they could get in touch with their families and everything else, and it was very fulfilling work. But for my life journey to see 100 years, hopefully, I didn't think that was the safest. And in the midst of that, I went to see my best friend. She was interning at Zenith, and we were going out for dinner. And I picked her up, and I walked in, and I sort of had one of those aha moments. It's funny, because they were actually in the building that we're in now at 111. And I had one of those aha moments where I was like, whoa, if you get to do this, like, you've arrived. And the next day, a recruiter called and said, hey, there's this media company. Would you, because of the technology that I was working on at the time, would you be interested in parlaying that into digital media? And I was like, well, that seems serendipitous. And many years later, here I am, and she was one of the first calls I obviously made to say, guess what I do now.
Right.
And it still feels very serendipitous that I'm here. And so
you're-
in terms of my greatest achievement,
Right.
sorry. That was long, I'm sorry. And I know I'm standing between people and drinks, so I'll be shorter on the rest.
No, it's okay. We got time. We got time.
But one of my greatest achievements, I would have to say, is over the last 2 years-ish, as we've been rebuilding this brand and bringing it back into the marketplace, I've been so proud of my team. First, thank them every day for the fact that they put so much equity and stake into me to join me on that journey. But we had 3 very distinctive cultures that we were looking to morph together when we were bringing the brand back. And I think one of my biggest accomplishments today is I see how well the team gels and fuses together across what were 3 very siloed teams brought together. And I'm ever so grateful for the people who help every day. Some of them are here, who help bring our teams together and kick off events and gather with purpose. So that's been truly remarkable, and I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you. So let's talk about Zenith as an ROI agency. Your focus is clearly about driving outcomes, and of course, within now that we're seeing sort of traditional out of home merging with digital out of home, and sort of looking at the whole industry channel, we are driving outcomes. A lot of the tech and the tools that we have today, we're really able to do so. What would you say is the one thing you wish more clients and customers knew or know today?
So Zenith is the ROI agency, and you heard a lot about ROI today. So thanks for all the shameless plugs for everybody. But that often resonates with people on lower funnel activity. And yes, we're obviously, as an ROI agency, we're very focused on lower funnel activity. But that doesn't preclude upper funnel activity, which really is about branding. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons I love out of home is because we've quantified lower funnel so well over the past few years, and especially in the programmatic space, and how we can measure that lower funnel activity. But it also gives you that giant brand awareness that replenishes the funnel from the top. And so it really gives you a more fuller, more robust feel to your campaigns, and definitely delivers great results.
Yeah, and a lot of the sessions talked a lot about, yes, we're using programmatic digital at home, but don't forget sort of where out of home fits in. It also is a huge branding medium and delivers such strong reach. So not to forget about how we sit sort of across the funnel, whether that's linear, whether that's top down, or it is so critical. So thank you for that. And just finally, to close out on your interview, tell the group today sort of how to be successful in leading a media agency.
TBD, right? But I will say, I think the thing that always resonates with me is you're not a leader unless you're paving a way for people to follow. And if you think about it as a walk in the forest, which I spend a lot of time doing, and that path that you walk in the forest, it was one person's footsteps first that helped to create that path, and it became further and wider. And don't be afraid to make your path deep, more secure, and more resilient for the people that are coming in behind you, and give them the opportunity to take an easier path than maybe the one you took, because that's the definition to me of true leadership. It's not about what I can do, it's what I can do to help those that are coming up behind me and make that journey a little bit easier.
That's great. Thank you. Love that. Thanks, Nikki. Bettina, I themed your interview delivery. Your story started with a sandwich delivery during the summer a few years ago.
It did.
You were working at Ace Bakery and dropped off catering to Ogilvy. And as you walked through the doors, you said, quote, "The energy was palpable." You said the energy chose you. I themed your story delivery, as I've said, and you've been delivering ever since. You are so motivating to your teams, and I see that because I get to work with you all the time, so I do appreciate that. And what happens, though, when you can't deliver? What have been some failures or challenges along the way, and what have you most improved on?
I really dislike the word failure. a lot. I think we should abolish that word in this as men
Right.
and women in this industry.
Yeah.
Because it's not a failure.
Right.
It's a lesson.
Yeah.
And it means different things to different people, right? You're going to hear me talk about self-imposing limitations, but the failure is just a lesson, and it's what you take away from it, and it's what you learn from that moment in time and apply moving forward. Similar to what Nikki just said, it's about, we took that path, we made that mistake, we learned that lesson, and now it's our responsibility to help out the generation behind us, send the elevator back down so that they don't make those same mistakes. I don't see them as being mistakes. I see them as being things that are just, I'm adding to my toolkit, and I'm adding to the experience, the greater experience that we collectively have in this industry of paving that way forward.
And your proudest achievement, tell us about it.
Probably leading some of the most incredible teams in this Canadian industry. I have been so lucky and fortunate to work with some incredible people, both on agency side as well as clients as well, doing hard things, doing things that sometimes don't make sense, but you just have this innate desire, energy, to be able to push those boundaries forward and to do the hard stuff and to pave the way forward to make it better for everyone else in the industry.
I love that you wrote "Shopping inspires you,"
It
so
does.
I'm not alone.
Come on, who
I'm not alone. But finding new sources of energy was also powerful, and that inspires you as well. So talk to me about what scares you. What advice would you give to young professionals in this room looking to lead the future of our industry?
So I know I just said I hate the word failure, because I do. But I think a lot of that is self-imposed. Myself, personally, I have this desire for perfectionism. I want things to be a certain way. It's a control mechanism. It's things that I can control. I can see the outcome. And trying to do that as a professional and as a parent as well, and trying to strike that balance and be everything to everyone, that's self-imposed. That's something that I do to myself, and it doesn't serve me. So that's why, I choose not to do that anymore. There's no such thing as balance with work and play and being a mother or a parent. One always takes more and one always falls back. And you have to recalibrate every single day which one's going to take more from you. So in terms of, moving that forward, it's what advice would I give? I would say do the hard stuff, because everything that you're going to choose to do in this industry, whether you're at the beginning of your career, in the middle of your career, at the end of your career, the hard stuff, the more you do it, the easier it becomes to face those challenges. And I've imposed that goal on myself for this year. This year, 2023, was about doing the hard shit. The hard shit.
All right, well,
My team does not like that.
All right, well,
But we do it
Let's
every
talk
day.
about your team and Out of Home. What are you thinking? How you feeling about it? Are we doing great work? How do you see Out of Home fitting into the mix? And are we at the table? You're at the table with your clients. Are we at the table?
Out of Home is always at the table. People who know me that I've always been a massive fan of Out of Home. Cinema, billboards. I mean, I probably will date myself about, the number of Dairy Farmers of Ontario campaigns that we used to book, and those milk calendars too. Out of Home has always been a channel that can storytell and can play an awareness. But now, with the advent of digitization and first-party data and signal loss and signal gains with everything that we have, we're able to utilize Out of Home for top of funnel awareness and also to convert and to, follow people around and deliver messaging. We just heard it with, DoorDash. Like it's a channel that we're able to pinpoint and, use it at a macro level and a micro level. So it really does offer the best of building a brand and delivering, dollars.
Right, you heard that. We're at the table.
You're absolutely at the table. Everyone's at the table.
Leslie, thank you. I themed your interview Trailblazer. Your story began at Queen's University in communications. Marketing was always something that you absolutely loved and you were thinking about. Yeah, your first job was at M2 when you started out in radio. You called on Mindshare, so it's kind of serendipitous that you're now the CEO. Tell us about your foray back into the agency landscape and sort of how that differs from what you've been doing for most of your career.
The reinvention, moving from sales after many years when I think that photo was originally taken. And you can date yourself all you want because I gotcha. But no, I think that it's like most things in my career, it was sort of like the right time, the right place, and the right people came together. I was ready for a change and a new challenge. Right place, Mindshare, as you mentioned, like first agency that I had ever called on when I moved over into sales. I won Rep of the Year. Karen Naylor was just so generous as a CEO at the time with her time and her energy. And she just had such a special team. And many of them who've moved on and done other things are still very close friends of mine today. So having the opportunity to go into Mindshare was just, it was too much to kind of like not go, oh, agency, all right, I can try this. And then KJ, Urania, the amazing people, Kevin at Group M that I, get to work with every day. It was a very compelling story and time for the change.
So you've always been a mentor to so many. You have this natural ability to lead teams and have people follow you. And, I can attest to that. We've worked together many years. What would you say are your strengths that have developed this quality in you, and what has been your proudest achievement?
Well, I'll start with like strengths because I think that there's a lot of things that go into being a leader, and I think that you three have really, obviously you do as well, Deb, but like you three really embodied that. And when I think about commitment, you really have to be fiercely committed to your team and to the purpose that you're driving. Authenticity, showing up every day. Like being the person that you are, being consistent, being fair, and being human, I think is really important in a leader. And obviously delivery, which is, right? It's about energy and showing up and creating a culture that people want to be a part of so that when that person delivers that sandwich, this is the place that they want to be. Proudest achievements. That one's like tougher for me, and I just had this conversation. I saw her, I didn't get to talk to her. I don't know if Rebecca Shropshire is still here, but we had this conversation over drinks a few weeks ago. And I don't think that there's any one thing, it's those little things. Because now I look back and I'm like, what's the legacy? And it's the moments where people just kind of go, when you did this, it really changed something for me, or it made a difference, and thank you. And sometimes you don't necessarily remember those moments, but it's the power in knowing that something you did had positive impact on people. And I'm very big on positive impact in the world, and the little things that we can put out there. And those moments are really, they make my heart whole.
Love that. Thank you. I also want to say that you were the first woman in Canada to run a national radio sales firm at Chubb and Astral. That was a pretty big deal if you were in radio when we were. We were the only two females in radio, let alone you were the first female running a division. Trailblazer, it was really unheard of. So having gone through that and getting to that position, talk to me about some of those challenges that surprised you on the journey. What's made you stronger?
I'm going to go a little off book because of something that Nikki was with me last week. And I think the big surprise to me throughout my career, being a woman, being a young woman, being a pregnant woman, being a parent, being a single woman parent, all those things and all those judgments and all the times people wanted to make you feel less than or diminished you in some way. And you get to CEO and everyone figures, oh, no one's doing that now. And here we were at a party last week saying goodbye, great party, and a woman from a former company that I was a part of took the moment to just diminish my contribution. And it didn't land, and so I had to say it 3 times. And I'm so over it, first of all. But I think that it's so important that, for me as a woman and having been defined as those things and having people really wait for you to fail or have this incredible narrative about how you're not smart enough or, oh, she's going to have a baby and sales are going to fall apart. They gave me 72 hours before I had to do a 3-hour conference call on why sales was okay that year. It's striking to me that it still happens, and that to me has been something that has fueled me because I don't let that narrative breathe. I go out and I succeed, and I make sure that my teams are succeeding, and whether it's the best retention rates that we'd had, when I joined Astral Radio, or the incredible growth that we had at Chum Radio, it was always in those successes that you shut down the hater, and you shut down the people who want to diminish your contribution. And you just always find that, and I think, it's made me a better person, never mind a woman, but it's made me a better person, a better leader, a better professional, and honestly, a way better parent.
Thank you. And I'm going to wrap Leslie's interview up because Leslie spent many years at Astral Out of Home. So I want your take on, it's probably been about 13 years since you've led an Out of Home sales team. I mean, how great have we done in the past 13 years? There's been so much change. So how do you feel about Out of Home today now that, you were in it, so many years ago? What does our future look like, sort of from your perspective? And are we at the table? And what excites you about Out of Home?
I think Out of Home continues to absolutely be at the table. The relevance of Out of Home today in the marketing mix it's increasing. And what I'm most excited about that I really didn't have as much of, and I've watched it grow, is really that tools, tech, and data story, while at the same time maintaining that magical piece of innovation and creativity and the commitment to it so that it does allow you to drive brand. I think having those 5 things all together in one story is really all about leading into the future and growth for Out of Home.
Thank you. I'm going to close with one last thing from each of these fabulous women. If you can choose one word or phrase that will guide this group, tell us what that would be. In terms of leadership or, future forward thinking or being at the table.
Treat people the way you want to be treated.
Great. Nikki.
I think you summed it up for me, Deb. For me, it was authenticity, and
Amazing.
that requires some deep work in yourself,
Yeah.
but and a real fearless mindset to be authentic and not fear judgment.
Yeah.
And so continue to be authentically
Authentic.
you.
Great. Bettina?
I said it earlier. Do the hard stuff. Do it every day.
Yeah. Yes, we can do hard things. Les?
Never be afraid to reinvent.
Great, and I always like to close with, be open and accepting of change, because that will, take you further in your career. And thank you to these wonderful women. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for sticking around to the end of the day. And thank you, Barry and the DPAA.
Everybody, stay in your seats for just 5 minutes, please. What can I say? An inspiration. I mean, to all of advertising, digital out of home, and people kind. Just incredible. I mean, do the hard work, great stories, inspirational. Churchill said during the war that leadership is not about pushing people, it's about understanding where they need to go and enabling them to get there. And you folks enable your teams to get there, and industry to get there, women to get there, everybody. It's just so inspiring. I'm deeply touched by what you expressed of your personal journeys today, your business journeys, and this is so important for advertising and our out-of-home industry to show up authentically as authentic leadership. And I just can't thank you enough for an amazing closing session. Debbie, what you put together here, and some of my good friends, I mean, this is just wonderful and amazing. A little bit of housekeeping, but don't go away yet. Please get your award submissions in for the Dewey Awards, for the We Do Awards, especially if that doesn't incentivize you to get some of your women's empowerment submissions in. I don't know what will, which is really incredible. We're going to have in a moment cocktail party sponsored by Outfront, Michelle and team outside. We're going to have a glorious time talking about all of the inspiration that we saw here. And, basically, we came into this at the beginning, and I talked about the mission of DPAA, and I talked about the DDC. Digitization, of course, diversity and connection, and I think you all nailed it on every front. And I'm emotional here listening to you guys just telling your story and what you folks just expressed and the leadership that you're providing. So I can't thank you enough. Leslie, Bettina, Carolyn, Nikki, and Debbie, what a great way to end the day and inspire us all future forward. Thank you so much. It's great. It's wonderful. Cocktails now. Thank you so much, Bettina. What a great start. Do the hard stuff. Always, Nikki.
Thanks, Dad.
Oh, wonderful. This is great. Hey, so nice to hear you as well. And a pleasure. And Debs.
Thank you.
Oh,
that was
what a
lovely.
great job. Oh, my God.